It's always great to be with you.
You always bring something meaty to us.
Well,
something tangible, something real, something important.
I'm not sure how to ask this question, so I'll just go for it. I'm not sure how to feel about God. I'm not sure I know what God is. I think I do. I came to you with...
Stop for just one moment. We'll hear you after a segment of refreshment, but we want to give you something here right now.
Okay.
We don't care how you feel about God, but we do care how you feel.
Yes. I got it.
And when you care about how you feel, you'll be full of God. When we come back from segment of refreshment, we'll chew on this a little further if you want.
Great.
Good time for it.
Thanks.
Welcome. You're ready to continue?
Yes. So, first of all, I do care about how I feel. But I've come on such a long path with regard to the subject of God. A long time ago when I was a little girl, I think I probably had the best concept of God. And then I was taught that God was somebody who was very demanding and that I couldn't possibly please, and who I couldn't possibly have real contact with. And then I read about philosophers who had mystical experiences, and before I found my mate who led me to Seth, who led me to you, I looked for that mystical experience. And then as I listened to Abraham, I had a whole other concept of God, which was more distant, and I know that I've heard you say that all you talk about is God. And I've tried to wrap my arms around what source is, and I've heard you talk, particularly early on, I remember you telling people what it would be like if they could talk to their inner being. And I remember when Abraham talked a lot about blendedness.
Often when we hear people speaking as you are, wanting a clearer understanding or definition or experience of God, often we can tell that what is missing in what we offer about it, for most of them, it's not always true, but for most of them, is they want this God to be making more decisions on their behalf. In other words, it feels more satisfying if there is someone who really is wiser and who really does know better, that in my weaker or more vulnerable feeling moments, I can look to for strength. And you know, we've talked about this on so many occasions, that when that which is God, or that which is that which man wants to call God, is being understood by man, man has to translate it into the format that he understands. And that's where it sort of gets sticky, because that which is this energy, this source that man is giving the label of God, cannot be quantified in anything that man understands. And as man attempts to do it, the distortions are just enormous, you see. And so we like what you're talking about here. You're saying, well, I can leave the label apart and I can let it take whatever form that it is. What I'm wanting is my personal experience with it. I want to know that it is.
Can I ask you one more thing?
Yes.
Does all that is have desires?
Yes.
And are those desires fulfilled by us? Are they
by you and others? Remember that if anyone, no matter what the perspective of desire is, if you have the ability to desire it, your reality has the ability to fulfill it. So everything that source energy desires is automatically fulfilled, just like you. In fact, source energy is so non-resistant in nature. But there's something in your question that we really want to focus upon for a moment, because we want you to realize that large parts of what we are joyously focusing about are the desires that you hold. In other words, as you launch a desire and send it forth into a way that we can then get a reading on it, much that we focus upon is that. And that, in fact, is where man got the idea of God. It is because source energy is intimately, infinitely, always responding to your requests, no matter how great or small they may be deemed by you or anyone else who is observing them. In other words, there is nothing so big that source energy can't get its thoughts around it, and there's nothing so small that source energy isn't willing to get its thoughts around it. And so in the moment that you have an experience that causes you to put out a request, that which you would call the heavens open, and source energy gives its full attention to it, you see. The hang-up is not in any of that. The hang-up is in the physical human letting it in. Yes. We talked a little bit earlier about the difference between knowledge and knowing. And we would say to you that what you're really reaching for is the knowing of that which you are wanting to call God. And we do not have any problem with calling it God, except that God means so many different things, and so many of them locked off to so many different people, that the label is not a label that serves you very well. Some it serves dramatically well, some it is not serving very well. And yet when we use a word like all that is or source energy, some feel a little put off by that. And we want you to make your relationship with this energy such a personal, intimate relationship that you never again question whether you have it or not. Just don't ask it to be like your mother and be there for you when you're not in the receiving mode. It cannot defy that. It cannot be there. It's there for you, but you're not letting it in. And this is the sticking point for most physical beings. Most people think that God would be there under all conditions. And they make up all kinds of stories, or they give translations of all kinds of things that have happened. As Jerry and Esther were driving here yesterday, there was a man on the radio talking about how he had been in a very big war, and he had been run over by a tank. And he was lying on the battlefield. And the army that he was warring against had no tanks. So Jerry and Esther were able to sort of put it together that he was run over by his own tank. And then he was lying in the corner of this battlefield, and the enemy came to him and stood over him with their weapons, but they did not kill him because he was surrounded by angels. And they ran away. And then he and his comrades were able to kill all of them because they had God's help. And Esther said, whatever. In other words, that picture is serving him very, very well. And he likes the idea of engaging in battle, and he likes the idea of being the one that's on the right side, and he likes knowing that his enemy is on the wrong side, and he likes knowing that God knows that his enemy is on the wrong side, and he likes knowing that God helps him defeat his enemy, you see. And we have to say to you that God is not helping anyone defeat anyone. The only one that can ever defeat any of you is yourself. It's only you that could ever hold yourself outside of the receiving mode, you see. And so we appreciated your explanation of the evolution of God within you. We noticed that when Esther began interacting with us, that in the beginning she wanted us to be sort of like the picture that she had of God, and she wanted us to sort of guide her in that way. And it was a little off-putting to her when she discovered that we were encouraging whatever she desired, as if she had the ability to choose. That was a very uncomfortable thing in the beginning for her, because she thought that we should choose for her, that that was the purpose of our relationship, that we would tell her what to do and then she would do it. Because she's willing to serve, she's willing to be good, she wants more than life itself to be good, to be the uplifter, you see. And it was unsettling to her when she realized that the contrast would provide desire for her and others, and that desire would be answered, and that everybody gets to satisfy their desires, and that the reaching for connection with Source is ultimately the most, in other words, there isn't anything that any of you want, no matter what it is, a thing or a relationship, an event, that you want for any other reason, that you think in the having of it you would feel good. And without exception, that feeling good is this God or source energy joining you, applauding you in the success of your receiving every single time. Yes.
Thank you.
Enough for now?
Yes, thank you.
Third row.